Welcome everyone to the 100X podcast. My name is Eid Almujaibel, and today our guest is Paul Berger, the CEO of Arena Group, a very interesting individual, and I'm really excited for this interview. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're most welcome. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about Paul. Just if you could give the viewers a brief interview or a brief introduction about Paul.
Yeah, well, so I was born in London, England, and I first came to Dubai in the UAE in the early 90s and moved here in advertising. Enjoyed my early days in Dubai so much that I started to build my businesses here, and I'm still here today, almost 30 years later. The UAE for me is very much my home. I met my wife here, my children were born here, they were educated here, and we've had a fantastic journey, which is continuing still today, and very grateful to be living in this amazing country.
That's amazing. So you saw the entire evolution of the UAE.
I have indeed. I've seen it when it was a very, both Abu Dhabi and Dubai were very small cities, smaller than they are compared to today. I've seen how they've evolved over the decades in a very positive way. I've been very grateful to be part of that exciting journey with the development, particularly of Abu Dhabi, and looking forward to being part of the vision moving forward.
Amazing, amazing. So Arena Group has taken part in creating some of the biggest events in the region. So let's talk about Formula One and Arena Group briefly before touching into more topics.
Yes, so we were very fortunate to be involved in the very first F1 Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. Back in 2008, I think it was, around that time, 2008, 2009, we were very grateful to be invited to provide all the temporary infrastructure that the Grand Prix required to host the event here. When I say temporary, we built, designed and built all the temporary structures, both for hospitality, support structures, for the emergency services, the catering, everything that was required to be able to host Formula One successfully in Abu Dhabi. And we still have that relationship and that contract today. And last weekend, we celebrated our 15th Formula One race here in Abu Dhabi, and it's grown enormously since the very first one. It's Formula One globally has taken off, and we're very fortunate, as I said, to be part of that. And particularly here in Abu Dhabi, we've seen the race grow from strength to strength.
That's amazing. So Arena creates temporary infrastructure for permanent experiences.
Correct. So the group, we're a global company, and what we do is we design and we build temporary infrastructure to support major events. Clearly, sports is our number one area, but in addition to sports, we will get involved in exhibitions, in music, in culture, that requires temporary infrastructure. So we come in, we design it, we innovate, we create, and then we build it. And then in a very sustainable way, we take away everything after an event and hopefully leave the site, the facility, in exactly the same condition as we inherited it in the beginning. We don't get involved in promoting or organizing the event. We leave that to other experts. So we have the pleasure of enjoying the event when it actually happens as well.
That's very cool. I read something about the Arena standard.
Yes.
So tell us more about the Arena standard in terms of the infrastructure itself and also the culture in the company, being the CEO.
Yeah, people often ask me what's the difference between us and our competitors, and I refer to that often as the Arena standard. And the Arena standard is very much, our pressure, our responsibility is to ensure that that event is ready on the day that that event is going to be opened or launched, so that that event can take place in a safe and successful way. So our responsibility is to ensure that the organizers of the event don't have to worry about what we do. So we set a very high standard in our how we build and deliver an event, and it starts with the planning, the design phases, and then how we project manage the event. And it all boils down to people. Anybody can build a structure, but it's how you build that structure, how you manage that structure, how you manage that client relationship. And I put that all into a box, really, and refer to it as the Arena standard.
That's amazing. And I'd like to talk more about these events that you created. So Paul went from sales and marketing in the 90s, being an entrepreneur, starting businesses, to being the CEO of this global tycoon company. So tell us more about certain stories or challenges that you as a CEO or an entrepreneur been through that maybe entrepreneurs that are watching can learn from.
Yeah, look, my background, I started when I first came to the UAE. My background was in advertising and sales, and I spent several years in advertising. And I was so excited about what was going on in this country that I decided at the time, I spotted a gap. It was purely very entrepreneurial in motor racing, and I set up the very first indoor karting business in Dubai in the 90s. And if you go back to the 90s, there was no motor racing in the Middle East other than what I did and what was in the desert in terms of desert rallying, which was very much led by, Mohammed bin Salem, who's now the president of the FIA. There was no Formula One. There were no motor racing tracks in this region. And I was very fortunate to be involved in the initial growth of the sport in motor racing in the UAE. So I remember coming here in the 90s and organizing here in Abu Dhabi 24-hour endurance races where we would have teams racing in go-karts, twin-engine karts. They were very fast, 120 kilometers an hour. Teams of 4 or 5 individuals that would compete against each other. And the team that won was the team that scored the most number of laps in 24 hours. It was a non-stop race, and I organized probably 6 or 7 here in Abu Dhabi. We would build temporary circuits. I remember doing one at the exhibition center at Adnec. We took over that site and we built our track, and then we would take it away afterwards. And that's how my sort of sporting journey, entrepreneurial journey started here actually in Abu Dhabi. I was then involved in acquiring a very small company at the time in 2009, which was a very small structures business in Dubai called Harlequin. And with Arena from the UK, we were involved in the very first event we worked on together was actually also in Abu Dhabi. It was the HSBC Abu Dhabi Golf Championships. So we came together in 2006, 2007 at the very first Abu Dhabi Golf Championships. And with Harlequin, we designed and built that golf tournament for the, in those days, the European Tour. We still have that tournament today. It's the longest serving client that we have in the Middle East, 17 years now of building the same golf tournament here in Abu Dhabi. It's now recently moved to the Yas Links, but it used to be at the old golf club here. And we acquired this temporary structures company, and that was the start of the journey to becoming a global business. At the time, we were just a UK company. UAE was the first acquisition that we made to make it an international company. And then 14 years later, we are now one of the largest in the world. We are in America, with 50% of our business in America, in the UK and Europe, and now the Middle East and Asia. So we have bases here in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, but also now in Saudi Arabia and in Asia.
So talking about acquisitions.
Yeah.
So recently there was an acquisition. Congratulations on Aztec Schaefer.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about that, since acquisitions has been a huge part of Arena's strategy and growth when it comes to education, scaffolding, and furniture. So let's talk about recent acquisitions.
So the growth of Arena really is both, as you rightly say, there's been organic growth in each market, but also acquisition. So what we've tended to do is go into a new market, acquired a company with similar values to ourselves, and then we integrate that company into the Arena group. And we did that successfully in the US recently. We bought a company during COVID out of bankruptcy called Aztec Schaefer. They're based in Houston, Texas. So Aztec is a party rental business. So if you live in Houston and you rent some furniture for a party in your house, 9 times out of 10 you would have used Aztec. It's a go-to company, a go-to brand. And then Schaefer is a very large structures business that builds all the PGA golf tournaments across the US. So we acquired that business out of bankruptcy in COVID. We bought half of the business. And then, as you rightly say, about a month ago, with the support of our new shareholders, we were able to complete the buying out the other 50%. So we now own it 100%. And it gives me the ability to fully integrate the whole business into our group, and so we're very excited about that. Golf is a massive business in the US, and it's one of our fastest growing divisions.
Integrations or mergers with two companies are not usually an easy thing, and most of mergers fail. But you mentioned something very important about people and values of companies. So how do you guys integrate two companies and merge them together successfully over and over again?
It's a very good question. Integrating a new business, a new culture into our culture is always challenging. And generally what we do is, as you said, we focus on HR. We focus on making sure that we take care of our employees, both in new companies that we acquire and our existing. So we create what is a people-focused culture within an organization. So I will, for example, I was there a couple of weeks ago, regularly visit each of our offices, do town halls with all the employees present, and we have lunch together where I present an update on the company globally, because it's always very nice for people who work, should we say, in Houston to know what we're doing in Abu Dhabi and vice versa. And we give the opportunity also for the employees to be able to ask me direct questions. And I get, recently when I was in our office in San Francisco, there were a lot of questions directed at me about training, about the opportunity to exchange and to relocate to other offices. And this is something that we encourage. So for me, it's about communication, and it's about internal communication, not external. Internal communication is very important to me, through our company intranet, through company notices, and physically being there face to face. Integration is always probably the most important thing for me in an acquisition, because when I'm buying a company, I don't want 1 + 1 to equal 2. It's got to be 1 + 1 = 3. There's got to be added value there, and that generally comes from how we integrate successfully. We protect the brands. They're very important, because when you again buy, we would never change Aztec Schaefer to Arena, because they're two extremely strong brands in their respective marketplaces. But that doesn't mean they can't follow the culture and the policies and how we run the business. And we're good listeners. I have a very strong leadership team that listens. And when you listen, you've got to be expected to respond.
You covered so many great points.
Thank you.
Great points, especially when it comes to the HR part and listening and the communication aspect, whether it's internal or external in the company. I'd like to ask you now about Abu Dhabi. Yeah. So Abu Dhabi recently also acquired Arena completely.
Yeah.
So tell us about that prior, post, and the changes that happened in the company after the acquisition.
Yes, Abu Dhabi's played a major role in my life and in the company's life. So up until 2 years ago, we brought the company private. So prior to taking the company private, Arena was a publicly listed company on the London Stock Exchange for 5 years, and then prior to that, we had private equity investors. 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, we took the company private with the support and backing of two major shareholders. Abu Dhabi being the largest, a company called IHC, who have been incredibly supportive of our vision as a global company. They have invested in not just Arena because we're based in Abu Dhabi and the UAE. They are investors in a global business, of which the UAE actually makes up a small percentage, and that was the rationale. They didn't want to just invest in a local company, but what they did want to do is to ensure that we grow in this part of the world. And our other shareholder is a prominent Saudi family office based out of Jeddah. They're the minority shareholder. And Saudi Arabia is our fastest growing market globally, particularly in events, as you can imagine. So we have the best of both worlds. We have a fantastic shareholder in Abu Dhabi that's extremely supportive of everything that we do. We have a great partner in Saudi, and I have a global management team. I moved the global head office from London to the UAE on the back of the take private. It was very important for me to have our head office here. I live here. I wasn't planning to leave, and our shareholders are here. And we see huge growth in this part of the world. So Abu Dhabi, in the past, I did my first events here in the 90s. We went through, our longest serving clients in the Middle East is Formula One Abu Dhabi and the HSBC Golf Championships. And now, and we have even prior to IHC coming on board, we've also been a great partner to the Abu Dhabi Sports Council, where we have a very long-term relationship with the Sports Council, with a multitude of their events here in Abu Dhabi, from the triathlon to the marathon, to their community sports, the UAE tour, another one. So I would say from an event delivery perspective, in this part of the world, Abu Dhabi is our number one.
That's great. That's great. Paul, let's talk about passion. So when it comes to being a CEO or running a business, whether you're an entrepreneur watching this show or listening, and how does passion come into play when it comes to running a company, starting a company, or being able to just be consistent with the challenges that every company has?
Yeah, I think it starts up. I think passion is a very important part of day-to-day life. I think there has to be a balance between your private life and your work life, and if you don't have that balance, it's tough. And I think for me, whatever you do, in life, wherever you work, you spend a great deal of your time at work, and not to enjoy it and not to get something out of it creates an imbalance generally, and it can have a negative. So for me, my advice is whatever you do, try and feel, your passion. You're passionate about what you do and how you strive. Because I'm very fortunate that when I get up in the morning, I love what we do. I love what we do because no day's the same. It comes with stress and responsibility, clearly, because we cannot be late on what we do. And we also have a responsibility on what we build. I mean, we are, my biggest fear, would be something like a structural failure. Because when you have a responsibility when you're designing and building an event, particularly when you're putting up structures. So there's a duty of care there. And so I'm very fortunate that because of the nature of my business, I love sports, I love what we do, I love events, I'm very passionate. And what I try and install with everybody in our organization is that sense of being, that sense of purpose. And if people don't feel the same, we try and work with them. I mean, we don't lose too many people. I have people who've been working for us for we've got people in the company way beyond before I've joined, 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
And that just shows that we don't genuinely lose employees. People will leave us because their circumstances might change. They might get married. They might have children. They might need to go back to their whatever. There's always a reason, but it's generally to move from us to another company is pretty rare.
Okay. And living in the UAE, what are a couple of things that you enjoy doing, whether it's with the family or just personally?
Well, what I love about the UAE first and foremost as a family man is it's safe. We're very fortunate given what's going on in the world today. Is I feel very safe here. My family feel very safe here, and I think that's a really nice. It's an important feeling to have. But what I love about the UAE is I'm an outdoors person. There is so much on offer at all times of the year, even in our summer, which I'm used to. So sports is a big part of that. Personally, I love to play tennis and paddle, which is this sort of new sport here. Yeah. I enjoy that. I enjoy watching my children play rugby and soccer. I enjoy the exercise and going running. I enjoy the beaches. I enjoy the culture. I mean, we have some wonderful, places to visit, and I love showing people around when they come here and visit, just avoiding the shopping malls, which get a little bit too busy for me.
Do you enjoy Arabic food?
I love Arabic food, yes.
That's great.
I love Arabic food.
That's amazing. Paul, if you had to give someone advice when it comes to getting into this industry in Abu Dhabi, how would you advise them in terms of starting a company and the changes that are happening in the event space, whether it's virtual events and physical events? What should they focus on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for me, it's trying to attract young talent into our industry. I mean, talent today, we live in this virtual tech world, and the youth of today, we're a physical business. I mean, building an event is hard work, and so therefore attracting people is not easy. It's attractive because sport is attractive and what we do. And when we say we build, Formula One, or we build the Olympic Games, or we build Wimbledon, people love that. But events is hard. It's a hard life when you're out there building, and people feel that, they want an easier life. They can make more money, doing e-commerce or, so for me, we do internships. Mm-hmm. We attract graduates. We do training schemes. For me, it's so important to diversify and try and bring in new, young, fresh blood. And that's really being led by a team of people in my business, which I call my design team. So we have we want to be innovative in what we do. We don't want to just go out and build the same. So with Arena and Formula One in Abu Dhabi is a pretty good example. We don't just build the structure. We will create the hospitality experience. So we build the structure, but we also then design and build the interiors. We'll put the furniture in, we'll put the plants, we will make it, we will create that experience when you walk in. So when you walk into an Arena structure, you probably actually don't talk about the physical external structure, but you'll walk in and you'll look at, wow,
it's a feeling.
This looks permanent. This looks amazing. It's got a good energy. And that comes, we have almost 30 designers. It feels like an advertising agency, but it's not. We have 30 designers that are working constantly to provide this innovative, creative, exciting facility experience for our clients and for their guests.
And obviously this comes with experience. So, I mean, designing an entire experience when people go to events, they might maybe just not notice all the small little details that give this overall feeling of
it's
one
the difference
single
between
event.
us and our, if I take you in, I could walk you through two different structures. And I love being side by side to our competitors, because I know where my interior designers have been and where others haven't. And we used to call it the magic is in the detail. You know, our new tagline, which is coming out now, which will be coming out on December the 11th, because we're going through a rebrand, is breathing life into space. And I think that really sums us up as a business. Generally, we that's what we do. We make a permanent impact on temporary space, and that's fundamentally what Arena stands for.
That's amazing. I mean, it reminds me of Abu Dhabi, how they created impact from space 20, 30 years ago. I mean, and how they shed light into, basically, they turned desert into a beautiful experience.
Look at this island, Yaz. I mean, I remember this didn't exist. I remember when they were building the Formula One track. And now look at this island.
Exactly. So tell us more about the Arena infrastructure inside the culture, the people inside the company, some challenges that maybe you faced as a CEO that maybe entrepreneurs can learn from.
Yeah. So look, we're a global company, and I'm running a global company from the UAE. Obviously has its challenges, with the time differences and the fact I can't physically be everywhere. So first and foremost for me, it's a team. It's not about Paul Berger. It's about the team. We are one team. So the first thing I did when we took the business private is, instead of running it as 3 or 4 different regions, is we run it as one company. So we run it as one leadership team, one senior leadership team, and we run it as one company. So we've created what I call group functions that we never had before. We touched on people, which is very important to me. So we now have a group executive vice president of HR. That person's actually based in the US, but she has control over our global HR policy, working with very experienced HR people on the ground in each region. But it comes from the top, and it comes from that executive leadership team which we get together on a regular basis, virtually and also physically face-to-face. We get together every 3 months, but we speak and we have our meetings virtually every month. And that leadership team is basically taking our vision. We have a mission and we have a vision and a strategy, and it's basically ensuring that message, that communication, filters through the company. and that's our executive leadership team. From there, we go down to what I would call our senior leadership team, which is about 40 or 45 people, our senior people around the world. And every year, we get together. All together, it's like a mini Arena senior management conference. We do it in a different city around the world. This year we did it in Houston because of Aztec Schaefer. And actually, next year we're going to go to Asia for the first time because a lot of people haven't been to our businesses over there. It's really important that everybody we visit, we go to where we base, where we operate from. It's important to see different cultures. And it's very important for those local offices to have, that leadership team come in for 2 or 3 days and spend time with them. I think, as I said, when I lead a team, I rely, my team make me look good. At the end of the day, I like to, my philosophy is to employ younger, smarter, and more intelligent people than myself. And if you surround yourself with people who are better than yourself, then that for me as the CEO is a great recipe for success, and also obviously planning succession as well. People often ask what the CEO does. I lead the company. My COO drives the company. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my responsibility, it comes with maturity. It's about solving and making decisions when decisions have to be made. But I rely very much on empowering the team, and we come together and we lead this company as one team.
So when you say when I need to come in as a CEO to make decisions when decisions need to be made, if you go back to 2020, when COVID was just about to happen and there was so much uncertainty, especially in the industry that Arena is in, how did that decision come into diversifying your portfolio, or take us through the process of COVID?
Well, COVID hit us very badly because events are the first to go and generally the last to come back after a pandemic. So we lost 70-80% of our top line business with the outbreak of COVID. So what we had to do was we used that favorite word, like many people did in those days, which was pivot. And we pivoted our business into being able to use our assets in other ways. So we were able to use our temporary structures for medical relief centers, for COVID centers. We were able to put up basically spacing, where you could build temporary structures for big businesses so they could spread out and not be all together in one office. And we did this across the world, globally. We did very well in North America, in that area. We did well in the UK and Europe. Asia was tough, to be fair. And here we pivoted and we built some pretty amazing temporary medical facilities here in the UAE on behalf of the government. And we tried to keep as many of our employees as possible across the world, taking advantage of some of the government schemes. Look, it was a very, very tough time for us. In terms of the business, what we did, we were a public company at that stage. So as COVID hit, we raised some money just at that time to make sure that we had enough money to get through, which we did. So we just basically protected our balance sheet. We protected our business. We all suffered, but we pivoted well, and we came through COVID, I think, as a stronger business. Events came back a lot quicker than I had imagined, and these event organizers expected us to be able to deliver the same standard as we did before COVID. That was a challenge, particularly from a logistical perspective, because COVID decimated our supply chain. That was the challenge for us, getting people back, getting our supply chain up and running again, because they'd let their people go. So it was a bit of a tough time, but we came through. We're still here today. I know there were many casualties, but we're here today. We got a lot of support here locally. At the time, I was the president of the UAE Events Association. So we lobbied the government for support. The government were very helpful. We communicated, but it was a tough time.
Let's talk a bit about Arena 2.0.
Yeah,
the rebranding.
So yeah, Arena 2.0 is the new private company under Abu Dhabi ownership and Saudi partnership as well. So Arena 2.0 is how we run the company today as one business, as one team. Mm-hmm. And installing a new set of values in the business. So as part of that journey, I have decided to rebrand the company, and it will be rebranded and launched both internally and externally in a couple of weeks on December the 11th. And it's not just about the logo. It's not about, we're not changing the name. It's not just about the identity. It's more about, getting across what we stand for as a business, what our values are as a business, what is our mission statement, mm-hmm. Where do we want to take this business? It's about a complete repositioning of the company, and I think giving us a big uplift as a business. Yes, of course, our identity, our logo will change. But then it's focusing on the brand, and the brand is Arena 2.0.
So what is the plan moving forward for Arena 2.0, whether it's the mission statement, the tagline, or the plans moving forward?
For me, it's diversification. I'm diversifying. I want to take the business away from being so dependent on sports, on events. I'd like to obviously to take our business more into what I call the temporary space, where people require structures not for an event, but they need it for a year or two. Bring it into the commercial sector. Events will always be our number one. It will always be what we represent. But I think, to ensure that we build a long-term sustainable business, for me, it's diversification is very important globally. I would like us also, we are probably the number 2 or number 3 global temporary structures business in the world today. I'd like us to get us, I'm obviously focused on number 1. We will get there organically, but obviously we'll get there a lot quicker if we can make some sensible strategic acquisitions. That's important for us as well. It's to continue to build the company. Since we've taken the company private, we have grown enormously as a business with the support of our shareholders. But at the end of the day, we're only as good as the last event that we built. At the end of the day, we cannot get complacent. People don't remember us for what we built 10 years ago. They remember us for what we built in Abu Dhabi last weekend. And therefore, we can never take our eyes off that.
So if you could share just one final advice, maybe you could look at the camera and just share one advice to people, to an entrepreneur who's thinking of starting a business in Abu Dhabi, what would that advice be?
My advice to starting a business today is planning, research. You really need to know what you're getting into. You can't underestimate the value of good market research, good planning, and from a financial perspective, always. For me, it's always under promise and over deliver, and I think that's what we've always done as a company. Is we are cautious, even though we've grown and the growth has been amazing, but we always under promise and over deliver, and I think for any sort of budding new entrepreneur is is know what you're getting into. So understand your landscape, understand your marketplace, plan for every single contingency, and then invest, in good people you can't, you get good people on board. That's half the battle. And then of course you do need a bit of luck. There's always a bit of that, but look, just keep trying. Don't give up. Your first idea may not work. I've known friends, people who are onto their third or fourth idea, and I encourage that, because it does take time. It takes time. Life is not all about, as we've learned with COVID and before, it's not all. It's always up and down, and you just got to ride that wave. And there will be good times and there'll be bad times. But if you set up a strong, solid business, watch your fixed costs, watch those costs, manage those costs, and then drive the revenue.
So, Paul, we covered so many topics, from leadership to HR to people to the future of Arena to the project. So thank you, Paul, for this amazing interview. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank you. Thank you, Abu Dhabi. You're a big part of our journey and will continue to be a big part of our company. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. This was 100X Podcast, and we'll see you guys soon.